dreams, making things a reality. 'Cause I know that nothing can stop me. It's a brand new day. I have a smile on my face.
Yep, we want Beyonce to remix it. Just like she did Savage. What up, bro?
Living my life, trying to love everybody right.
What's up, everybody?
Got my sword and my shield. Oh, baby, we gonna win.
Just trying to get a few more people on. Just vibe to the music, though.
It's a lovely day, oh lovely day, lovely day. 'Cause I know that it's a brand new day.
Oh, yeah, scroll there.
Hey, TheCoreofU family. This is Bianca Page.
Hey, this your boy KP. What's going on, everybody?
And we are from TheCoreofU, Community of Restoration and Enlightenment, spiritual and relationship coaches. This is why we're doing this. So glad for our loved ones that are supporting and our friends and family.
Big shout out to my baby sister, Danielle Page, for our opening song, A New Day. A New Day. Beautiful. We love that. That's going to be the opening song for us when we're on stage everywhere we go doing this thing, you know, talking about relationships. So it's not necessarily, today our conversation is not necessarily just to people in relationships. Maybe you're single, maybe you're thinking about getting in a relationship, maybe you're entertaining the idea and there's someone out there that you're kind of, you know, on the fence about. Today, that's what we want to talk about, being what the world calls equally yoked.
So break it down, babe. The spiritual definition, how the misnomer, what does that actually mean?
Okay, so it actually, this thing that they call, you know, being equally yoked, actually is, it comes from a biblical term, phrase, but it's not actually, it doesn't pertain to relationships.
Right.
So it actually was talking about believers being yoked up with unbelievers. That's actually what the scripture is in Corinthians, and that's what that's talking about. So if you are a believer, you're not supposed to be connected or, you know, become friends or whatever you want to call it with someone that's not a believer. That actually doesn't pertain to relationships. But in our living, in our studying, in our coaching, we learn there is some truth to making sure the person you consider or are considering to be your significant other, especially if you're thinking about being married, it is important that you have and share some commonalities.
And yoked means put together.
Right, so yoked means put together, it means joined. But it really came from a phrase from when the farmers were out and they were going to till their ground before they were getting ready to put seed in the ground for their crops for the year. It really came from, you didn't want one oxen or cow or bull, whatever they use, to be taller than the other. If one was taller than the other, they would be considered unequally yoked, and it would offset the plow, and it would make it really difficult. So they would go down one side and plow the soil, and they would have to come back and do it over again. So it gave them double work. If they found two oxen or cow or bulls that were equal in height, it made the work easier. They could go down and drop seeds in 2 rows and come back, and it would cut their work for the day. So that's where that comes from. So that's
analogy.
where people kind of brought that spiritually in an analogy, and that's what we kind of want to talk about today.
Absolutely, because when it comes to dating, when it comes to being in that actual union, you can start to see that come into play.
Absolutely.
I know that there are, and don't get me wrong, we both have our strengths.
Right.
So we're not saying you have to have the same strengths and in every area you have to be exactly the same.
Right.
But you do have to come to the table being able to team up and be that yin and yang, and you can't be like two people going always opposites.
Right.
Although there is that saying opposites attract,
Right.
you have to be spiritually, emotionally balanced.
There has
balance.
to be
there has to be a balance.
It has to be a balance, and then then you have to be willing to compromise. You know, you and I aren't the same in everything that we do, and the way we think, the way we operate. And we're noticing that more and more in this quarantine couples, right?
Oh, yeah.
And quarantine couples, we have our children. We have a 3 and a 5-year-old that we talk about all the time. We don't discipline them the same way. We don't. I'm a believer in naps, and she does believe in it, but maybe not so as strict as I am. And so we have to find ways to compromise. So most people, if they just watched us in parenting, they would probably say we were unequally yoked based on the common general, but that's the farthest from the truth.
But I'm glad you brought that up. As a matter of fact, that's part of your work when you are in relationship with someone, to identify areas where you become imbalanced.
Right.
So right now we are actually committed to going back to the table, and we're going to talk about it. We have an appointment on our calendar to have a discussion going back to last week.
Right.
See the post from last week, where we're going to talk about how we want to parent and how we want to come to an agreement so we both feel comfortable going forward. Because you'll notice that your relationship hits different seasons, and it grows and goes through different valleys and peaks, and so you have to be flexible to pivot and turn with it. So now we're going to readjust to talk about that so we both feel comfortable.
Yeah. I mean, and as life goes, situations come, tragedies may hit, finances change, you add children to the equation. So whatever you're equally yoked in may actually change as times and situations change, because what you thought was so important may change over time. So like right now, your priorities and as an individual, and remember, we're all individuals in relationships, still trying to maintain our individualism, but we're still in relationship with somebody else. So your priorities change as life changes. Sometimes they alter. So you have to make sure that you're constantly in communication about what your priorities are. And that's why it's so important that you meet and you talk and you commune with one another and just discuss. As she was saying, tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, we're going to get up, give the children a movie to watch, and we're going to just talk about our priorities. What's most important?
We've been hitting heads.
We've been having some I don't even want to call it conflict, but it's just been a difference of priorities.
Difference of priorities and imbalance. So we're like, okay, it's kind of like when you're going down the street and you're driving and you say, oh, wait a minute, why we keep going, hitting a bump right here? Why we keep having this same discussion? Let's readjust.
You got to get your tires balanced. You got to all the time make sure that you're readjusting, realigning, just like your tires on your vehicle. Realigning, readjusting, balancing that's what they call it. You got to do the same thing with your relationships because your priorities become different.
And let's talk about what being equally yoked looks like, because I'm always big on application. Okay. So one of the top things that comes to mind is we both, before our marriage, been in relationships with other people that were not of the same spiritual family,
right,
or even maybe churchgoers.
Right.
So do you think that because one party does or does not go to church, or one party may or may not have the same belief system, that it can still be balanced?
It can. I think that it most certainly can. We don't want to just say that it can't, because we know that people are doing it, have done it, and will do it, right? So we won't say that it can't, but it makes it very difficult. Both parties, I think, have to really both be committed to the relationship. And then what are the areas in our relationship that we do agree on, that we are equally yoked on, that we do have the same thought process and foundation on, and we'll build on those. But I believe it has to be constant conversation, because if one is spiritual and the other isn't, there's going to be conflict that arises. It's going to arise. And
let's be clear that there is a difference between being of the same religion versus being spiritual or not.
Absolutely.
So I don't think you have to have the same religion, but I do say this. there is a difference between spirituality and practices. So if you have different traditions and customs, you need to talk about that, because that's going to directly affect the things you do or do not engage in.
Absolutely.
And if you're both spiritual, you can come to an agreement. You can come to a middle ground, but you will have to go through that checklist and say, hey, one person may believe, totally different things in the Sabbath, one may not. One may believe in drinking, one may not. And those get into practices versus if you believe in a higher source or not. Right. If you have a calling to a higher source. So you do have to differentiate between that.
So for some of you that may not be in relationships or are thinking about relationships, it's very important that you discuss these types of things with the person that you're considering to call your significant other. What are on Sundays? What are you doing on Saturdays? What are you doing on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays? Because on Sundays, I know me. I'm getting up. I'm going to church, and it's very important to me that my significant other is going to church with me. And we don't necessarily have to pray the same, but I do, because I'm a spiritual person and really I'm really in tune with my spirituality. My hope is that I have my significant other that does the same.
Yeah, and that goes back to your individual priorities, because for someone else that may not be a priority. But I know for me in the past, it was hard being in a relationship and you go to look to get some spiritual fulfillment for your significant other, and your cup is empty and they don't have anything to fill your cup up with.
Wow.
So you do have to think about, how does this play out? Then what happens with, let's see, the everyday things. You're a sports fanatic.
Big time.
He can't watch sports right now, but he has figured out ways to
no sports battle. I ain't got no sports. I know you, man. We just hurting right now, man. I watch two kids kick a can down the street right now in the name of sports and competition. It's ridiculous.
So because I know that that's a love of his that I don't partake in, I am intentional about engaging in those activities with him every now and then.
And she will go to a live game with me and not sit there with her arms just folded, but she will actually go to a game and get into it and enjoy it. Yeah, definitely.
Watch some Sports Center with you, and
Watch
when it
Sports
gets
Center.
gritty. So it's like you don't have to have the exact same level of interest in everything.
Right.
That's not what it looks like. But it is being intentional about staying connected in areas, because to the extent you do not, you leave a gap.
And I think also, and another thing is, because she knows that I have a love of sports and that I'm so big into it, she's not always on me if I'm watching a game or something. Now there are certain things in life that are way more important than a game, obviously, and I take those things very seriously. But I'm like, babe, this is a big game. I really want to see this. I really want to watch this. She has been amazing at saying, okay, she might even cook, may even lay it out for me to make sure that me and the fellas, or just me, myself, can watch the game and do it in peace. Take the children, take them somewhere else. And sometimes they may all sit and watch it with me, and that's amazing, and that's great. And so that's what we're saying about being this equally yoked. Even though she's not a sports fan, she's not going to get in the way of me of doing what I love to do, knowing that I love it and it's a very big passion of mine.
Right. So if you could take away a couple of things from this video, it would be, first, self-reflect and know your priorities within your relationship or before you're going out to date. So you should know what your priorities are and what you hold near and dear, what's important. And why do I say that? Because then when you go to relate with someone, you need to find out where they stand and where they are on those topics that are a priority to you.
Right.
And then when you're in a relationship, don't take for granted, we're 11 years in, don't take for granted that I know that person and that what was important when we were 2 years in is important now.
Right.
Because it isn't. You have to revisit it. And like we said, we're two different individuals when it comes to parenting, but parenting wasn't on the table 9 years ago, 10 years ago. That wasn't a priority.
Right.
So they shift. So you have to be intentional about staying in balance. So we're using balance in place of yoked, So you have to be intentional about rebalancing yourself, just getting a wheel alignment.
I like that. So we're replacing that term because I talked about it before about being equally or unequally yoked. We're replacing that with just finding balance. Finding balance in your relationship. You have to find balance, work hard to find balance for yourself as an individual first. So you're going to have to kind of work doubly hard, to find balance with your significant other in relationship. And I think it's so important that you make that very important every day. I was just watching two millionaires. I was just watching Jada Pinkett Smith talk about Will Smith. And during this quarantine couple time, she said, I'm learning during this time that I didn't even know Will as my friend. I didn't even know him. I'm learning him as my friend.
Wow.
So, and most people will try to, use them as a gauge as a great couple and couple goals and all that. And that's fine if that's what you choose to do. But she's saying during this time, I'm learning him all over again. There was things, and we have made sure we're taking this time to learn your significant other, man. Learn their likes, their dislikes. What they love to do, what they don't love to do, the things that rub them the wrong way. All of these things are very, very, they're just so important for you to make a priority. You want to make that a priority because if stuff ever hits the fan and it's only you two and your children,
like now
for a lot of people, right? What are you going to turn to? What are you going to depend on? What are you going to lean on? We can't all just drink our way through this whole, quarantine time. We got to make sure that we spend some quality time with one another.
And I think part of that is knowing each other's strengths and weaknesses. So now we're talking to folks that may not be in the that are already related.
Right.
But when you're dating, you should be getting to know that about one another.
Absolutely.
Where are you strong? Where are you? Where can you use improvement? But that allows you to be able to balance out in those areas.
Right.
So how you deal with finances, because finance is a huge thing.
Yeah.
So there's usually somebody that is a little more astute. Now, if everybody's a spender or if everybody's a saver, you have to deal with that.
Right.
But typically, you have different spending habits, and you also have different ways of accounting for funds. And you need to play to your strengths and know what those are.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I know that there are strengths that my husband has spiritually. He is a mentor to me in knowledge. He knows that word. He teaches me a lot of things. So, I let him lead there, and I follow and I learn, and then we come together and sup. We vibe off of each other. But I don't try to go fact for fact because that's not my strong suit.
Right. And in turn, she's big, she's huge with finances. She's taught me so many great things with finances. And I'm a spender. Anybody that knows me, I spend. I didn't have when I was young, so then when I got it, I'm like, let's spend it and let's enjoy it right now. And you can't do that all the time. So that's where we balance each other out, where we become equally yoked, where we were in our own natural state, unequally yoked, as people say. And I keep throwing up the quotes because I just want people to understand that you don't have to like all the same things, know all the same things. You don't even have to believe all the same things. You just have to find some common ground with the person you are going to consider to be or is your significant other. There were some things that B was asking, and we wrote some of those things down.
We touched on
all those?
And what I don't want you to do is to don't ignore the signs. Even if you're in a relationship,
not close.
Yeah. If there is a gulf,
wow.
Like I
like
can't,
that. That's a gulf. Like if there's a big gap in your balance,
don't ignore it. Because I wouldn't do it in a friendship or a platonic relationship or a relating relationship. So if my significant other loved to tell lies, that would be an issue for me. That's something that I prioritize very high. And we're not going to be able to balance that out if the person cannot ever get to
the truth,
prioritizing that and having that. And so you need to be honest with yourself in a relationship or early on. Non-negotiables, abuse. If you get to a point where something becomes abusive, verbally, emotionally, spiritually, and don't get me wrong, I have been exposed to different forms of that. So, but you have to know where to draw the line.
And any person that tells you that you shouldn't have boundaries, limitations, or expectations, you need to leave that person immediately, because that's somebody that's going to do whatever the hell they want to do when they want to do it. Pardon my language, but that's serious, man. If somebody wants to tell you that, no, you can't have boundaries, you can't have limitations, you can't have some type of expectation. And what I mean is there should be no balance, no goal setting, no vision, no drive at all. That's somebody, if you're a person that's driven and have goals and vision, then that's probably not the person. What do we say on social media a lot? Those are not your people. Really, those are not your people. They're just really not. And my mentor, I wanted to share this, my mentor and my spiritual grandfather, God rest his soul, Bishop Alan Cox. Many years ago, him and I talked about being equally yoked with somebody. And he told me, he said, if you can't be happy with your significant other with just bread and water sitting on a milk crate, then when you get a big house with 7 or 8, 9, 10 cars, 7-car garage, all this money in your bank account, if you can't do it with bread and water and a milk crate, you're going to have a hard time doing it when you get all of these things. And it took a lot for me to understand what he meant. But as I got older and older, I'm like, wow, this is what Bishop is talking about. Just being able to have peace. If you don't have all of those things, all of that extra stuff and that materialistic mindset, having peace now, if we can kind of master peace at that place, when we do get things, man, peace is going to be the least of our worries.
And you would be able to have peace now.
Right now, during this quarantine.
That's right.
Have peace.
So, feel free to send any questions. We're open to that right now. We'll answer any questions. But the main takeaway, go back through the video if you missed anything, is first, know yourself. Know your own strengths and weaknesses. Know your own priorities, whether you're in a relationship or not, because they change. Then, if you're dating, you need to make sure you hit those things. Don't leave it to assumption. Don't leave it for later. You know, make sure. I mean, it doesn't have to be a inquisition, but it should be a natural dialogue, and you should at least be observing if those things come up naturally. You know, all you have to do is listen to people and watch them. They'll tell you everything you need to know about them.
No doubt.
Then, within the relationship, whether you're a year in or 20 years in, reassess, make sure you do things to stay in alignment and understand that your priorities will shift, and with that, so does your needs and your wants, and you have to guard against becoming unequally yoked, out of balance. And be honest with one another, pull each other's coattails. Wait a minute, you know, you might have things that happen in your life, going back to a spiritual meaning of just, that could rock you to your core, that could make you question your whole relationship with God and everything. And you're going to have people close to you that can not only recognize it, but talk you through those moments.
I watched, many years ago, I watched two people who the people in the community considered like winos, alcoholics or whatever. And I stopped and talked to them one morning, and I was going in to get some chips or something like that, and I was asking them, you know, what is it about? I asked them, how long have you been together? And they told me they were together for 37 years at that time.
Wow.
37 years they were married. They had invested and got into the stock market, and then when it crashed, they hit rock bottom, and they never could recover financially. But they stayed together.
Okay.
And so when I was on my way in, they asked me if I would buy them something to drink. And so I got them what they asked to drink. I bought it for them and came out and I gave it to them. And so I said, but I have questions for you guys. So I asked them, how long had they been married? They told me, and I said, well, what is it? What's the secret? How are you guys able to stay married? And the man looked at me, he said, real simple. We have the same goals. We have the same mindset. And when I walked away,
wow,
I looked at it and I was like, for them, and I'm not telling people this is how you should be. This is not what I'm saying. But just get the message in it, right? So every morning they woke up, and their goal as a couple, even if they had to split and go find it individually, was to find a bottle that they can drink from, and then bring it back, and they would share it. And that's where their peace and their happiness was.
I got you.
You know what I mean? Now, listen, I'm not saying that, that's what you should be and that's what you should do.
That's beautiful, babe, because you weren't so high that you couldn't learn something from two people in that state. You could still see the message, the gift that they gave you, which was you got to have that same goal.
Got to have that same goal.
Two ox can't be pulling and be going two separate ways. They have the same goal to go forward and pull that weight.
And they were willing to do, by any means necessary, whatever it took to get that bottle so that they can get it back to the other one so that they can drink and enjoy it with one another. And all I'm saying is every morning you and your significant other should have the same mindset, the same vision, the same drive to make it to those same goals. However you two decide to do it. However you two decide. You may have different roadways or pathways that you get to it, but the mission should be the same. That's where the balance comes in.
I like that.
That's where that so-called being equally yoked comes in.
Okay.
What's your end goal at the end of the day? And for us, we have children. Our end goal, although we don't discipline them the same, our end goal is still to make sure that we raise children in an environment that's healthy, whole, and complete. She's taught me those phrases, and I love it. As soon as she said it, I love it. We want to make sure that our children, we do the best that we can to make sure that they come out healthy, whole, and complete. We want to make sure that we love one another. That bottle. Make sure that we love one another enough that even through our differences, that, as you often say, I see you. Even through our differences, I see you, and I'm going to try my best to meet you where you are. I'm going to try to bring the best version of me to the table every morning. And if I fall short, I'm going to ask you to forgive me, and I'm going to try my best not to repeat the same mistakes tomorrow.
That's right.
I think
you just put the period on it.
Put the period on it?
I think you put the period on it. So you guys follow us at TheCoreofU, letter U, on IG and Facebook. Please support. And our mission is just to help. Let's help one another build couples, love. It's all the foundation. And we just want to see everybody be successful.
We love y'all. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're staying, as wifey says, healthy, whole, and complete as much as you can during this quarantine couples time. We got more things that we want to meet you and talk to you about. If you have any questions, any things you want us to discuss, talk to us. Hit us up on IG or Facebook.
And if you want to coach with us.
Oh yeah, and if you want to use our coaching services, we have that available too. We're going to push you to be the best you in your relationship for your significant other.
All right. Peace.
Peace.